This week, Jill Biden was interviewed by Nancy Brinker on Prime News. In the interview, Jill said that people in this country just need to get over their anger. She also said that living in the White House, she and Joe have learned to live with criticism and not take it personally. And she also added that being elected president and first lady has been the honor of their lifetimes. In the old days, on an airplane, they would issue people a vomit bag in case during the course of the flight people needed to throw up. But somehow Jill Biden seems to think we all need to swallow this. Welcome to Conservative Coffee Hour. I'm Stanley Smith. I don't think we're asking anybody to swallow anything here at Conservative Coffee Hour. We respect the idea that everyone is a free thinking individual, and they can make out of things what they need to in their own time. On the call recently, we were sharing the idea of encouraging people to vote in general, and more specifically to vote early. And Larry and I did that a couple weeks ago. We experienced what Larry calls the energy of the voting process by seeing the ballot, feeling the ballot, and filling it out and casting the ballot. And I did share that when I handed in my ballot, I asked if this would be counted that evening, and I was informed yes, it would. So the energy of the experience for me was not as positive as it might have been, because to me that fuels the scenario that the votes can be counted and tallied, and that on election day they'll have a pretty good idea of how many votes they need to make up. So my gut feeling was vote on election day, and I feel that's kind of where I am. But again, we're hearing the idea that we need to encourage people to vote in general, which in the old days they used to say encouraging voter turnout usually benefited Democrats. So at a certain point, you wonder if we're just within a false narrative inside another false narrative, or counter opposition on every turn. Last week we had Barbara Palmer again to continue talking about the litigation of the January 6th people, and again, interesting nuances of the conversation. And one thing that struck me in listening to Barbara talk about the cases and the very granular nature of distilling the law and the charges. And I was impressed by the idea that in many ways the government has to abide by the law. They have to. It's a very narrow and prescribed, they have very narrow and prescribed parameters in which to work within. And that was illustrated to me especially with the idea that everyone charged at the Capitol has been charged with rioting, because that is in fact what the event was deemed at the time and is legally defined as a riot. The word insurrection is not present in any charges or in any official documentation of the event. And Barbara also pointed out the irony that President Trump himself cannot be charged with insurrection, because he would be in charge, since he was president at the time, he would have to be charged with overthrowing his own government, which is essentially impossible. And there were also other nuances about the timing of when President or Vice President Pence was removed from the Capitol, also informs and impinges on the legal parameters and limits how far they can go with charges against any one person based on the fact of when and if and how he was present at when and what time. It was very, very interesting. As we continued discussing this topic and other topics, it became apparent that in legal terms and in government terms, they have to abide by the system, whether they like it or not. But the way to stir the pot is with public opinion and with the media and the political theater of it all. That's the arena, the vast arena that most of us live in. We don't actually live in the world of facts and the law, because most of us we're not well versed in it, and it's never articulated to us. All we've heard in regard to January 6th is insurrection, but in fact, it's a riot. But to the best of my knowledge, we don't hear a lot about riot. This coming week, on Saturday, we will have representatives from the Libertarian Party, the head of the Illinois Libertarian Party, Justin Tucker. And Until recent times, I think voting libertarian and talking about libertarians has also seemed like a counter narrative of somehow undermining the Republican base. But he's going to share, Mr. Tucker's going to share the idea that the fact that in Illinois we have a couple of libertarians on the ballot because the Republicans just weren't able to seat somebody in some of these key races. So that'll be interesting, and I think we all need to put our discerning thinking caps on as we listen to the strategy and the mythology of voting libertarian and in which particular case to do so. In talking to Barbara Palmer and the narrative and the hyperbole of the news cycle and the election cycle, we're all inundated with the idea that this election cycle is the most important election cycle ever. But they've been telling us that for 50 years, and who's been telling us that is the Democrats and the Republicans, and somehow we've all arrived at this big political mess we seem to be in. So, might be refreshing to hear from the libertarians, but more importantly, I think listening to our guests and having cathartic moments. Uh, it was cute at the end of the call. Barbara is a very sharp and shrewd lawyer. She shared that she does, in fact, believe that there were election irregularities and election fraud, and she didn't go as far as to say the election was stolen, but she did say that she has seen a lot of the information presented by Mike Lindell and others, and when she might mentioned like Mike Lindell, I could see expressions on the screen brighten, and I welcomed Barbara into the wonderful world of people on the other side of knowing. And she was so encouraged to know that she's not alone in having a critical thinking mind and being able to see a bigger picture and being open to an alternative view, which might just turn out to be the real picture. If you would like to join us at Conservative Coffee Hour is every Saturday morning at 10 a.m. Central Time on Zoom. I will include my email in the description of this video. I'll be happy to send you an invitation. And I look forward to seeing you very, very soon.